It's said that teaching someone something that you know, an area of your expertise, actually helps you learn yourself, because in the experience of trying to articulate it, you have to understand and conceptualize all the different parts of it, how it works, what the process is, what the exact elements of the technique are, to explain to someone else how to do it. So actually, in some senses, Boomio is actually helping some of the great players learn more about the game and more about how they think about the game as they teach people like you who go to boomio.com and watch their guides, play on the servers, etc. Because we've got some of the best players of all time there. We've got Fallen, legendary AWPer, in-game leader of SK Gaming, two-time major champion. You've got Shocks, major champion in the past with LDLC, one of the all-time great players now in G2, formerly in Very Games. These guys are there, they've done guides, they've put work out there, and if you subscribe to the premium service, you can enjoy this. There's a free aspect to it as well, where you can test stuff out. Now, in terms of greatness, victory, these kind of topics are themes that you'll notice often runs through my work. And part of the reason why is because, I mean, this is something I kind of talked about I think I actually talked about in my reflections interview, which is up here, where I had kind of an epiphany about sports, that a lot of the epic nature of sports isn't actually how much money they get paid and the fact that it's all televised and the fact that someone tells you, oh, you know, it's the big game, do you care about it? No, part of it also is we've created an imaginary landscape around the game which explains to us how someone's the best, what the benchmark is for being the best, what it means when you are the best, what the rewards are that come in that respect. So the actual details aren't as important as the methodology and how we symbolize what the meaning of everything is in the game. And you have to essentially, I would boil it down to this, you have to create an atmosphere around the game where the feeling, the tension during a game, the importance of a game, the significance of victory and what that means for how people treat you and what the discussion around you will be then at that point in time, how long you're talked about afterwards. These elements are really what make it more than just two people playing a sport, two people playing Counter-Strike, two people playing an esports game. And so one element of this that I've seen in traditional sports, and I've seen in Korean esports, in StarCraft Brood War particularly, that hasn't been replicated or picked up on by Westerners, is this notion of having an actual symbol for a very significant victory that stays with that player and adds to his resume, as it were, in a very visual sense, a very tangible sense for fans and everyone who encounters him after his moment of victory. And this is the idea of winning a ring in traditional sports, like obviously the most obvious ones like the NBA, you get a ring if you win that. Or if we're talking about esports, I mean, there's the fact of winning the badges that you got in Korean Brood War. So the point of this is, yes, obviously in real sports, when you win that ring, you're not going to be wearing that ring as you play basketball. It would interfere with the game. Also, then there'd be the whole thing of like, if people punch someone with a ring on, you don't actually wear it during the game. So it would be different in real sports to how it could be to some degree in esports. But it's very significant, actually. If you're someone who's won those rings, you do wear them at certain times and in certain occasions. And you will do picture shoots where you've got them on. And that is a symbolization. It symbolizes what you accomplished. To get that ring, if you're a top player, not just some bench player for the team that wins a championship, that's very significant that you got that. Because, yeah, that's not really what you were going for, the ring. You're really going for the accomplishment and to accomplish and to the satisfaction of getting to a level that you wanted to be at and to be the best in a moment. But that's what that ultimately ends up symbolizing. Yes, the ring itself isn't as important as what it symbolizes, but when you have that symbol and you've attached all those elements of meaning to the symbol, to have it and to be able to show it means something significant to you. It's an important piece of memorabilia, and people count how many rings, because essentially those represent how many championships, how many times you might have been the best, how many times you overcame difficult, adverse situations to triumph ultimately within the context of the best you can accomplish in those sports, which is just a regular season and the playoffs. Now, beyond traditional sports, which have had this for a long time, it's existed in esports, and it existed for a long time. In StarCraft Brood War, so we're talking about StarCraft 1, the expansion game, which was played in Korea for a solid 12 years as a top-level game. It's come back again and had a revival, but it's not on the level it was before because it doesn't have OSLs and MSLs. They had these two big individual leagues. Yes, they had a team league that was very important, and they had international tournaments like the World Cyber Games that were very important, but the most important tournaments for an individual's career and his legacy were the OSL, the On GameNet Star League, which was run by On GameNet, which is a TV channel, and they had their own individual league, and they'd beat roughly 3 of these a year. And then the MSL, the NBC StarCraft League, which was NBC game, which is a TV channel, and they had their own individual league. And again, roughly 3 of those a year. So around 6 of them a year. So if your peak as a pro player is 1 or 2 years, you might only get about 12 cracks at winning a major championship. And if you can get 1, even 2, that means a lot. And what they would do was, with each of these different ones, they would give you a badge. And if you won a badge in the OSL, you get a little badge, and it actually was a pin badge. And you could put it onto your jersey, and you could play and go to every game and go to every match after that with this little badge. So everyone who saw that, he won an OSL. Even if they weren't following the game then, even if they weren't around then, even if they'd never thought, well, how great a player was it? If they see 3 badges, well, he must have been an incredible player. Likewise, MSL, they give you a badge, etc. And in fact, they even had a level above that, where if you won 3 OSL badges, they gave you a little statue of a golden mouse. And only a few players ever did this in history. Likewise, in the MSL, you won 3 MSLs, they gave you a golden badge. So it was, as opposed to just being the MSL badge, it was a golden one of those that you could wear. And again, people see that. I mean, you can't obviously carry the golden mouse around. No one did that. But the golden badge one for the MSL, people see that. They know, fucking hell, you won 3 MSLs. I mean, that's big time shit. So, for example, the player who won the most badges in history and wasn't tied until the very end of the game by Flash was the great Terran player Nada. And he literally could go along and have 6 badges there to show that I won the most ever. No one's ever gotten to this level or accomplished this much. And later on in his career, when he was an older player, when he was no longer going to win and he was just playing in team leagues and he's still a big name and a fan favourite, but not a top player anymore, you could still see by those badges and people would know what that meant. And it was significant. Likewise, when players like Flash and Jadon were coming up, they were incredible talents, but until they get those badges, you don't really put them in the same category as those greats. Once they start to get badges the same number as the people before, now you have to have that conversation. Now it doesn't matter how great someone thought Boxer and I Love Uwe and Nada were. If Jadong's getting up there with 4 or 5 badges, now you have to start having a discussion. Hey, where's he fit in this? He's ahead of Boxer. He's tied with I Love Uwe. You know, this is a great way to symbolize victory. Now in Counter-Strike, which is the game I think would be most suitable to bring this into, because we have so many tournaments, but we only have a few majors a year, I think that these badges should exist, should be created, but only for majors. I want this to be where we've had the 10 majors so far, and there should be a badge for each of the 5 members of the winning team. And first of all, this means when you have rivals, when you have someone you battle with, hey, this is a way to show off to your rivals. Like, you know what? TSM in 2015, the Danish team that's now Astralis, used to beat Fnatic a number of occasions in big tournaments, in significant moments. They threatened the Fnatic era, but Fnatic came back. Fnatic won the 2 majors during the period, well, just before and one after, when TSM was arguably the best team on those days and were a very, very good team. So you know what? No one calls it the TSM era. No one cares about that. What everyone remembers is who won the majors. So I'd love it if Fnatic had those badges, where even if JW and Flusher go over to Godsent and Godsent's not a good team and is nowhere near winning tournaments, hey, every time you watch them, every time the camera pans down that line of players and we're putting the camera on someone and showing his stats, we can see this guy's got 3 major badges on his chest. So we have to bring that up. We have to remember that. We have to talk about that, and newer players see, before we've even described anything, hey, this guy's one of the greatest of all time. He's done incredible things in this game, no matter where he is at that point in his career. So it's a great way to show off to your rivals. It gives it a level of intimidation. You can even work it into the smack talk, like, hey, I've got one of these, where's yours? You know, there's the respect factor that's going to come from other players. Hey, yeah, they might be better than you individually in this moment right now, but when they see those badges, that's what they're trying to accomplish. That's what you have accomplished. There's a natural level of respect almost has to be engendered from that you don't have to necessarily have when you don't have a symbol like that. I mean, famously in traditional sports history, there's a number of players who would use this as like an intimidation element. Like Michael Jordan would have those rings on when he went out in a private scenario, and he'd flash them to someone who was a rival and say, hey, where's your rings? You know, I've got 6 of these. Phil Jackson, coach of the Bulls and the Lakers, who won 11 rings, actually would specifically wear a different ring each time he was coaching a different team in the playoffs. Like, this represented like my 2001 ring, which is like a very dominant one, but we got it together at the end of the season, so that players would see that, and he could even tell them the story. Hey, you know how I won this ring? Like, and then he could explain something to them. He could teach them something, but also it instilled the respect in the players that, hey, this guy's won all those rings. He can even choose which ring to wear on each day. I'm being coached by him. Maybe I should listen to what this guy has to say. Maybe if I don't necessarily agree with what his coaching is right now or this aspect, maybe there's something to this that I can go with. That's the power of a symbol when it's embedded within the culture and there's an atmosphere around it and people instantly know what it means. It's also, as I've alluded to already, a great way to remind fans, and especially to teach newer ones, who are the legends of this game. Who are the players who aren't just great players or aren't just very good players in history, but have accomplished the ultimate goal? I mean, listen, as much as we make fun of a player like Smiths when he was really quite below par at the end of G2, if he has a major pin on, hey, at least people have to know that, yeah, we're making fun of how he plays now, or he's not playing at a good level now. You know what? At one point in time, he was on a team that won a major, and he obviously played some role within that, and probably to some degree played good, and he did actually at the time. So it's a great visual reminder. You can also then associate a ceremony with it, which is something they do in traditional sports, like in the NBA, usually at one of the early games of the next season. They'll have a whole ceremony where they've got the rings made, because the rings are often made by the organization, actually. But I'd like it involved made them personally, but yeah, we can see how it goes. And they have a ceremony where the players come out one by one and you give them their ring, etc. And if the player transferred to another team, you wait until that guy plays your team, and then you have a ceremony where you give him the ring. Now, what's great about this is it's a really great moment after the accomplishment for the owner, the ownership, the organization, and the players who are all involved in accomplishing that successful major championship to celebrate it, to get one last moment out of it, and then to have that moment of closure, like, right, we accomplished that, fantastic, we celebrate you, thank you so much for your efforts, everyone did great, give speeches and stuff, and then it's closure. You go, right, now we're past that, now we're on to the next one, now we're not just going to keep going on about that. I think it's a fantastic way to celebrate the moment, but then move on past the moment. And as I said, it's a visual indicator of greatness. Because remember, not only have the players who've won them, like if Taz has one and Get Right has one, then yeah, that does add this whole element when they talk to other players and when players look at them. But here's a key element you haven't thought of. What about the players where there's an absence of that pin? What about Guardian, one of the best players to ever play CSGO? Probably a top 10 talent of all time. Maybe even a top 10 player of all time, no matter what. Where's his major pin? Doesn't have one. He's been in the finals a few times. He's been top 4 a bunch of times. Never won a pin. And that would be something that, again, you could discuss. That would be something that people would look at and go, that's what he still needs. That's something that's missing from his legacy. Then when you see a player like Kenny S, who didn't have a major pin for a long time, right through to the end of 2015, yet had accomplished a lot and had been the best player in the world, when he finally gets that major pin, what do you think that means to him? What do you think that means to people who then look at him and go, right, he did that element, he added that, checked that off his checklist, as it were. He entered the hall of the major champions as well as just the greatest players. So I think this will be a fantastic way, especially for a sport like CSGO and esports, to celebrate greatness, to symbolize the greatest players, and to have a visual reminder for everyone of what someone accomplishes when they win a major.